All right. Funny story here before I get this review kicked off properly. I had guests lined up for this review originally. Due to, we'll call them unforeseen circumstances, I was not able to get any of the guests that I had lined up for this review. These things happen. So, this review for The Marvels will be just me. That is until I remember something. I do have another guest. By the way, if you guys are Patreon subscribers, you actually have access to the video format of this. So you get to see my co-host as well as myself. But why see me when you can see my co-host, who is also the star of tonight's main event? I have with me here a Captain Marvel bobblehead, vinyl bobblehead. I've had this thing, I guess, for close to 8 years now, and I've never, I've never taken it out of the box. I forgot I had it, honestly. Some time ago, me and the homie Kevin, we went up to Chicago for RizardCon. It was a really cool convention there. This is where we met Charlie Cox and Elodie Young, and John Bernthal was supposed to be there, but he no showed me, so I'll never forgive him. That's neither here nor there. But there was like this mystery box thing that we had, and this Captain Marvel bobblehead was inside of it, and we never opened it. So it remained in the box, shoved in the deepest, darkest crevice of the laundry room until earlier this week when I remember, holy shit, I have a guest. So here at Love on the Podcast, let's go ahead and open up this Captain Marvel vinyl bobblehead. And Carol Danvers herself will be joining me for tonight's episode. Oh, there's a bag and everything. Oh, you tiny, girl. You real small. All right. I gotta rip her out the plastic. She been acting brand new. I'll see myself out for that. I'll go to bed. I deserve that. There we go. All right, and there she is. Higher, further, faster, right? Isn't that how it is? She looks extremely angry. Like she's full on Karen mode in this face she's making here, for sure. All right. Well, I'll put you right here for now, Carol, and I will call upon your presence when needed. I think that if you had like a time machine, right, and you could go back just, I guess, when was this movie announced? If you could go back in time maybe 4 years ago, right, immediately post Endgame, and and you told me that they were going to make a movie called Marvels, or The Marvels, I would be so hyped. I would have been beside myself with joy, right? And I have to imagine that Marvel, do do they know what they're doing? That sounds facetious. What I mean is that like there is a very popular, well known graphic novel called Marvels, not to be confused with The Marvels, which is tonight's movie. This right here in my hand is actually the second copy that I have of Marvels. I got the original version, the original graphic novel some time ago, but then shortly thereafter they released this deluxe edition, and it was worth every penny. It's amazing. I think that this is definitely a top 10 Marvel graphic novel. If you guys haven't heard of it, haven't read it, me and Kevin, we reviewed it some years ago here on the podcast, so definitely go through the archive and check it out. But not to delve too deep into the different Marvels, right? It'd be hilarious if instead of discussing the Marvels, I just discussed Marvels, But that is it's a fantastic story that kind of chronicles the events of the Marvel comic universe through the perspective of a journalist or photographer named Phil Sheldon, I believe, and they kind of take things and they put them in time, like when they actually happened in the comic book era, right? So you get to see, like, from the perspective of this journalist, like, what did the invasion look like? For those you don't know, like, the invasion was like when Captain America, and then you had like Namor, and you also had Jim Hammond, I believe is his name, the first Human Torch. You had those guys, and like all the other heroes go over to like kind of fight the forces of evil during like the war era. You had he goes over, and you get to see like all the different iconic battles and whatnot, and you get it from the perspective of like a just a civilian, and it ends up being one of the most heartfelt and most endearing comic books that I've read. Beautiful artwork by Alex Ross. Read that book and loved it, and yeah, I was about to give something away that's pretty spoilery. One of my favorite moments in it, but it's great, great. But on to the Marvels. So before we get too far, there is the reading of the rules, and I will still do that here tonight. So for those of you who have not seen the movie, there's no need to worry. The first portion of this episode will be spoiler free, and the second portion will be spoiler filled. There will be a brief pause between the spoiler free and spoiler filled section, in which I will ramble about something else. Marvel, Disney keeps giving me ammunition to talk about, so there's plenty of things to filibuster with. So there is your reading of the rules. You've been warned. So this first portion, again, will be spoiler free. The Marvels. My review of the Marvels. All right, so I want to do this review a little bit differently than what I normally do. Typically with these reviews, I'm more thorough with them, right? Or like I look at all the different aspects of the film and kind of dissect it and see what works about each of those elements. So like I would be like the action, like what you guys think about the action, or what about the cinematography, what you guys think about the tone or the pacing, just kind of go down each of those things and just see where everyone's thoughts are at. But because I'm by myself and because this movie is kind of a different beast altogether, I figured I'd do something a little bit different here, where I'm going to talk about the good and the not so good. What do I think this movie did well, and what do I think the movie maybe could have improved upon? We will start here, and this is a position that I did not expect to be in. Just here a couple of weeks on the podcast, the homie Caleb was on. Maybe this was the comic news episode, but I said something to the degree of, I hope this movie makes me eat crow. I don't take pleasure in thinking that this movie will not be good, and I hope that it surprises me. I said something to that effect. And just a few days ago, as of this recording, we had different critics online bash the Marvels. And I'm thinking to myself, this is interesting because I'm normally on the opposite side of the critics, right? And this is before I saw the movie, so I'm thinking, okay, I don't know really what is happening here, but there's been very few times that I have been on the same side as the critics. So could this be one of those rare occasions where maybe lightning strikes? And I saw the movie, and I gotta be honest. Let me go ahead and put my bib on here. This movie is actually fucking terrible. Ha! Gotcha. You thought I was gonna say something different. You thought I was gonna switch it up, didn't you? No, I didn't. Did not switch it up at all. I had to pop myself somewhere in here. But no, to keep it real though, this movie actually is better than the first Captain Marvel. Yes, that is an incredibly low bar, but I mean it's still something. This movie is hands down better than the first Captain Marvel. It feels way less pander-y than the first one. It feels way less ideology driven than the first one. It feels like they actually had a story. I'm not take it that far. In comparison to the first one, it feels like maybe they had an idea to put a story into this movie, and then it got lost somewhere along the way, and then it just never happened. But we'll get there. In terms of the good, though, something that I've seen a couple of people say, and that I do have to kind of talk about here a little bit too, is Iman Vellani, who plays Kamala Khan. Uh, People online have been praising her performance in this movie, saying that she is, people saying that she's the heart of the movie, or she's, one of the few things that works. And I agree. I think that I thought that she was pretty darn nifty in this movie. She was pretty good. I got to give it to her. She plays this role, I think, better than anyone else could that I can imagine. I really can't picture anyone embodying the character of Kamala Khan any better than this young actress. So she really does a great job trying to carry this movie on her back. The tiniest person having to shoulder this movie on her shoulders. What a trooper. My problem is that as good of a job as Iman Vellani does in the role, Kamala Khan is still a shit character, and it shows, right? This is the most I've ever seen of her. I stomached 2 episodes of the TV show, and that was all I could do. But the issue with the character of Kamala Khan is that it doesn't go any further than her being a fangirl. And that's where her personality traits end. That's where her character ends. She is a gleaming, bubbly fangirl. And I guess that works for some people, but I like a little bit more substance to my characters. And maybe she has more substance in the Miss Marvel TV show. Here's the problem: I'm never gonna watch that, and I think that a lot of people will run into that as well. The other issue is that in this movie, there is nothing else there for her. So even if she is better written in her TV show, which I hope so, in this movie, which I'm assuming we'll see, well, I'm assuming more people will see, the issue is that there's still nothing else there with her character. But to circle back around to the good, though, yeah, she steals the show in this movie, like without a doubt. Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan, yeah, she does it, man. And I would really love to see what she could do in the hands of capable writers and directors. Um, but I mean, she'll have other opportunities as Miss Marvel down the line, I'm sure. So we'll see what happens there. Other good things about this movie: this movie is incredibly short for like today's standard Hollywood affair. This movie clocks in at like an hour and 45 minutes. I think that's like with all the credits included. So it's not a long romp. You know what I mean? Like you kind of end there and then you're out. The other interesting thing about run times like that in these superhero action movies is it kind of forces the pace, right? So you can't really lollygag on a movie that has such a short runtime. You cut off the credits and the movie's damn near an hour and 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Like there's there's probably some episodes of long form television that equal out to this, in these days. So, yeah, the length of this movie definitely wasn't. Not only was it not an issue, it was very welcomed. You know what I mean? And I mean, the plot to this is very thin, and it's not even really a plot. It's a premise, and there is a difference, right? So, like, the premise is like, hey, here's an idea that we can expound upon and then make something of, and then the end result is the plot, right? But well, they didn't make it to the plot point. They just made it to the premise standpoint of this movie. They have a premise for this movie, and it never gets to be fleshed out. But again, just being completely honest here, I think that this movie did have potential. Like there were moments where I saw potentials for this movie to be at least standard popcorn, watching movie. Like there was, this movie was never going to be amazing, not with what they have here, but it could have been an enjoyable turn your brain off popcorn flick. Instead, they don't really give you the opportunity. I don't think that this movie offends my senses as much as like Thor: Love and Thunder or The Eternals, or it is somewhere for me between like The Eternals and Ant-Man 3 in terms of overall quality. But there's reasons for that we're also going to get into. I'm not done with my goods yet. So in terms of things that are good about this movie, the other thing that I could really think of off top was because of the short runtime of this movie. Like I mentioned earlier, it does force the pace, and I rarely recommend breakneck pacing for movies, but this one needed to have a fast pace because again, the plot is paper thin. It's beyond paper thin. Like like maybe for those of you who went to college or like had your super broke days and you get like the super thin single ply toilet paper, and like the ones that's super easy for you to punch your fingers through, and then you're having a different experience when you're on the toilet. Like it's the plot is that thin. All right, so when you have a plot that's that thin, what ends up happening is that the flaws show immediately, the plot holes show immediately. But if you speed up that process, then either A, your audience won't notice, or B, there won't be any time for you to stew on those plot holes. And then you can just kind of distract people with the pretty colors and or the action sequences or whatnot. But that does kind of lead into like kind of the last pro or good thing that I have for this movie here, and that is I think that some of the action scenes seem to be pretty well conducted. I am a really big action buff. I love action in like my movies or television shows, and when it's well coordinated, man, it's just beautiful, right? And because of the premise of the of the movie here, which if you guys have seen the trailer, any of the trailers, then you know about the premise for this movie, right? It's Freaky Friday to a degree, but instead of changing bodies, they change places when they use their powers. So they have that to overcome, and it's an interesting kind of ordeal, right? And I'm gonna stick with the action here for a second because some really interesting discussion to be had there about what they could have done with this premise. Um, but it makes the action interesting. It makes the action unique, right? Because whenever they use their powers, they trade places, and there's three of them, right? And so keeping up with it and seeing who ends up where, and then there's mild spoiler. There's a mini montage of them trying to come in sync with it, right? And to use it as a strength instead of it being a weakness. I dig that. And then seeing it in some of the action scenes, seeing how it plays out, was also pretty darn nifty, pretty fun. So I thought that the movie really had that going for it too. And so I think that those is probably where. Oh no, there is one more pro. See, there's more pros than I thought. Tiana Paris. Um, I mean, I thought that she was kind of bored and maybe half asleep throughout her performance here, but she looked amazing. So I got to give her a pro for that. I mean, yeah, definitely thumbs up. She looked fantastic in this movie. That's not a pun or anything. Like, there's no Fantastic Four. If you guys were thinking that, I just wanted to say she looked amazing. So, and she does. Shout out to you, Tiana Paris. All right, so Now, what didn't work for this movie? Everything else. Can I go to bed now? Um, yeah. So, I'll go ahead and say this too, right? This is kind of like a moot point, but as far as Brie Larson goes, um, I think just out of pure necessity, she delivers a better performance than she did in Captain Marvel one. But I mean, it's not by much, man. You really just gotta be splitting hairs to determine where she played this role the best at. Was it in Captain Marvel? Was it in Endgame? Or was it here? And truth be told, it's I mean, I don't know. It's probably here. I'd imagine for me. Um, so I mentioned earlier how the premise had potential, and it does. But man, it takes a clever motherfucker to pull this off. And no offense to Nia DaCosta, she's the director for this movie. I liked some of what she had to do with the Candyman movie that she directed a few years ago. She showed potential for that movie. It stumbled in some places for me that I didn't really like, but her cinematography was pretty good in that darn movie. So I was kind of hoping that she would improve, and take some step forward in this movie, but I really didn't get to see that here. But in terms of like what the story here has to portray, so they Jimmy rig up some reasons for the three Marvel ladies to switch places whenever they use their powers. Which, by the way, it wasn't really when they used their powers. It was when the plot said that they needed to switch places. You know what I mean? Like there'd be times where they use their powers and nothing happened, and then there's other times they use their powers and bam, they switch places. It's like got to be the thing specifically where they get glowy fist, and when they get glowy fist, then that's when they switch places. So the inconsistency with it, first off, kind of bugged me a little bit, but I was willing to overlook it. I can overlook certain things if there are other strong suits in the movie. The other thing about this premise that I feel like they really dropped the ball on was you can have a lot of fun with the idea of every time you use your powers, they switch places. But man, you got to have some big brains on board helping you write this movie when you have three characters and who should have three distinct power sets, and when they use their powers, you know what I mean, they switch places, and like that's a lot of fun, right? I mean, that's a whole lot of fun. And you get the idea that quickly that Nia DaCosta and cast and crew, they're kind of in over their heads because uh I mean, again, maybe mild spoiler, but like it doesn't take long before all three of them are together, and then they are together for the rest of the movie. So you don't really get to see a lot of the play swapping when they use powers because it can get really chaotic. But hey, fucking go for it, right? I mean, go for the chaotic energy. They do that a bit in the first act, and that was honestly maybe the best act of the movie. That the only thing that had potential to work. I was borderline nervous, like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to eat crow on the podcast because like I like where they're doing right here with this, and I thought it would have been much cooler had they found a way to keep the three main leads maybe kind of separate and trying to get to each other, and also having to deal with swapping places when they use powers because now someone who's not in danger is in danger and vice versa, and it can create this whole interesting dynamic, right? And then you have them come together in the third act and find a way to stop whatever's happening. I think that would have been way cooler, but that would have been way more brain power and way more creativity. So instead, we get kind of the coolness of the premise for maybe 15 minutes. And then it's on to, you know, trio, girls do it best type shit. Y'all remember that? When that one wasn't it called "Girls Do It Best" and the boys when they shat on that scene in Endgame? That shit was hilarious. Tasty drink. Uh, in terms of what else this movie also does, I mentioned how the action really does have a lot of cool potential, and it does. And there are some cool moments here with the action, like when they really do get creative, and I think that's cool, right? Especially like when they kind of learn to use their powers in tandem, even though they're switching places. So much cool potential there. It falls apart though, and it's really the editing that lets them down here. I don't know if the editors just fell asleep, like they were overworked and they decided to take a nap, and then when they woke up, it was deadline, and they're like, "Oh shit, let's see what we can do. Let's splice some shit together." But yeah, what we end up getting here is just it just kind of feels cobbled together, spliced in, and the action becomes unintelligible. It becomes hard to read and hard to follow, and it's like I can't appreciate what you're trying to do right now because it's just a jumbled mess. And so yeah, that's kind of an unfortunate thing there. They This movie wants to have heart. It does. Like they try. The problem is that it doesn't have the opportunity to land because I don't think that Brie Larson and Tiana Paris have that good of chemistry together. Not enough chemistry to sell us on the story they're trying to tell us between those two. Like, I just still have a hard time buying that relationship between those two. Um, and they try, mostly through different forms of exposition, flashbacks, monologuing. They try different methods of exposition to get us as the viewers to understand and believe in their relationship and why they'd have this kind of fractured relationship where they're butting heads against each other. But the issue is that it doesn't work here. They go for it, but it doesn't go anywhere. And so they want us to really buy into their friendship and mending of their relationship, but ultimately it just doesn't really lead anywhere. And as far as Kamala Khan goes, people call her the heart of the movie. I mean, if the movie has to have a heart, it'd be her. But again, the issue is that I have a hard time attributing something being the heart of the movie when it's just a one trick pony. And unfortunately, that's what Kamala is. She's the one trick pony who, is supposed to be the comic relief fangirl. And I'll be the bad guy if I need to, but I just want more from my characters. Uh, as far as like how the other characters are, I mean, there's really not a whole lot to say there. I mean, there really isn't. Like they're just there, and man, I really feel that Tiana Paris got the worst of the brunt, because Monica Rambeau is in the comic book she is an extremely powerful character, extremely cool character. This is a little known fact that I try to spout as often as I can whenever it comes up, but Monica Rambeau, she is truly the first female Captain Marvel. Now, for whatever reason, Marvel chooses to try to sweep that underneath the rug and pretend like it didn't happen. Hell, Marvel actually tries to ignore any Captain Marvel that exists before Carol Danvers. If you really think about it, they don't big up any of the other Captain Marvels, which is odd, right? Because they're all better than Carol Danvers. I thoroughly, sincerely enjoyed them all over Carol Danvers. Marvel is my favorite. Oddly enough, Monica Rambeau is my second favorite. I really liked her run as Captain Marvel. You had Genus Vale. I thought he was okay. I think Peter David has a run on him, and I've read some of it before, and yeah, it was fine. Phyla Vale, I liked her. because like her story really went somewhere. Like she had something to prove, uh, just her trying to simultaneously be the hero that her dad was, that her dad is Marvel. Same thing with Gina's Vale, but also wanted to escape from that kind of shadow, and they did it in such a way that was really cool because she was an actual character. She wasn't just some kind of vehicle to I don't know, to preach some message. Um, but yeah, then we eventually get Carol Danvers, and she just doesn't work, and she hasn't worked, and they have tried to make her work, and she continues not to. And at this point, I kind of feel bad for Brie Larson. Um, to a degree, it's not her fault. Marvel has had this kind of hubris for a while, and let me be more specific. The MCU has had this hubris for a while, where they think that they can get anything over, and they're learning now the hard way that they can't. That there are some things that they do not have the capability to get over. And for those of you who don't know what I mean by getting over, is getting popular, getting people to thoroughly like or enjoy them. And they Marvel backed the wrong horse. So anywho, enough of that. Yeah, there's really not a whole lot more I have to say here about this movie. It has choppy editing, it has a poor plot. I haven't said anything about the villain because why the fuck should I? At this point, it's almost low hanging fruit to pick on this villain. I gotta be honest, I didn't do any research on this movie before I went to the theater tonight. Uh, for a lot of these superhero movies, I like to do a preview where I give you guys my thoughts about what I think the movie's gonna be, comic book references and tie-ins, comic book based storylines, like if the movie's based on a specific comic book story. Talk about the characters from the source material. The previews for me are a lot of fun because I get to kind of compare and contrast. I didn't do that with this movie at all because I like my life. Um, but I do have to say, it was interesting looking at the villain because the villain is Darben. Uh, I did not know the villain was supposed to be Darben until I sat down and watched the movie tonight. And the reason why I said that it's just low hanging fruit is because if you guys have seen Panderverse, the South Park special, it's just such an easy layup. So yeah, Darben is another Kree villain, and long story short, he is a kind of a bargain bin, Ronan the Accuser. But notice I said he. Darben is a he. He's a guy in the comic books, and here, it's a chick, and I mean they just put a chick in it and made her lame. I can't make this shit up. I can't make this shit up. Um, yeah, I mean, truth be told, they were never working with anything great in terms of source material with Darben. It's not like they're a fucking this amazing, deep, compelling Kree villain. No, I mean, like I said, it's bargain bin Ronan. You know what I mean? Like Ronan the Accuser was busy. I guess in this sense, he's dead, right? Yeah, Ronan's been dead, but you know what I mean. Yeah, they just didn't do the character any favors here. So, uh, yeah, I think that's pretty much all I want to say for the spoiler free section. Again, I'm doing this solo. It's getting late, so I'm probably gonna keep this one kind of short. I say that every time, but I mean it this time. So, my final thoughts and score for this movie before we go on to the spoiler filled section. Marvel really needed a win here, and they were working at a deficit with this movie as it is. Marvel is a they're obviously backed by Disney, and Disney is an incredibly powerful corporation, and they're an incredibly intelligent incorporation when they want to be. And with the first Captain Marvel movie, they were intelligent. They placed that movie in a position where people thought they needed to see it to understand the finale of Phase 3. They got one over on us, and they made $1 billion because of it. And and so for the movie came out in 2018. So for what, those 5 years, people have had who love and support that movie no matter what. They have had the opportunity to kind of wave that $1 billion in the faces of people like me who have thoroughly dissected that movie and pointed out each and every reason why that movie's trash. And but at the end of the day, it made $1 billion, and you know what? There's nothing I can do about that. Hell, I contributed. I paid my money to go see that movie. But now there's no excuses, right? And it's such poetic justice, in a sense, dark justice, right? Because I think undoubtedly the Marvels is in every facet better than Captain Marvel, but it's just not enough. It's not nearly enough. They didn't do enough. They didn't try hard enough. They should have known from the start that this movie wasn't going to be where they needed it to be. They they gave us a plot that honestly doesn't make any fucking sense. And I mean, if you guys want to, we'll talk a little bit more about it in the spoiler field section. They gave us three leads, which that's not the bad part. I don't mind the three leads, but one of them has tested poorly with audiences since her inception in 2018. One of them, or shit, not one of them, but the other two, people don't know. People don't know Monica Rambeau, not unless they watch WandaVision, and that was 3 years ago now, and unless they remember what she did in WandaVision and then how she got her powers, which the movie tries to remind you, but even that doesn't make any sense. And then there's Kamala Khan, who she just debuted last year, but no one watched her TV show. So they were placed in a really shitty situation, man. And the longer that I sat there and watched the movie, the worse I felt, because it was in the viewing of the movie that I saw how this movie could have had potential to not be a deep or compelling story, but to at least be a really cool, interesting, and creative action romp. And they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't fucking do it. And that made it all the more frustrating because I really wanted these ladies to have a win. Yeah, I really did. I realized that like halfway through the viewing that I really fucking wanted this movie to be something good. And so, this, and I think maybe subconsciously it goes beyond that. I really wanted Marvel to have a fucking win. I want superhero movies to have a win. And this just ain't it, man. I give the Marvels a 5.6 out of 10. So, yeah. There is that. There is that. They say in some cases on school tests you get half credit for just, putting your name on the paper, so. Yeah. So as I kind of preamble before we get to the spoiler field section, it's kind of weird, right? With Monica's character, this is a mild spoiler, I guess, but she never gets like her actual superhero name. It's because she's had, more superhero names than the other two. No, Kara Danvers has had the most superhero names, right? I mean, there was Miss Marvel, and then she was, there's Binary that she can go by for a little bit. There's Captain Marvel, obviously. Monica, she's had Captain Marvel. She's had Photon, Spectrum. I thought they were going to go for Spectrum in this movie, like the way that they were playing off her powers. But she doesn't really get a superhero name, so it's kind of Kind of bizarre. Um, it was interesting. I don't know if you guys have seen this as of this recording or not, but maybe by the time you guys hear this, you may have seen it. Bob Iger, he actually came out recently and spoke about the Marvels, and it's sad, man. It really is. Like he's lying through his fucking teeth, but he's trying, saying that it's just a vocal minority who are saying that this movie isn't projected to do well. This movie is on track to do amazing, and he just starts doing the whole corporate thing where he's trying his best to spin it and pretend like there's nothing negative going on with this movie, and that there's just vocal people online who saying bad things about the movie, trying to get it to drown. It's yeah. I mean, like I already said, it's just sad. It's sad to see. Uh, I also noticed that with the trailer for the Marvels. Listen, if you're gonna put out another quote unquote fun and goofy and silly movie, then at least try to stand by it. With that second trailer, that's the one that we get like the opening, and it's the opposite of the first trailer, right? So like the second trailer, it's like the Battle of Endgame, literally footage from the Battle of Endgame, and we get the dark, ominous music, and I think is it Nick Fury talking, but they're basically like, remember when Marvel was good? Pepper's Farm remembers. Go see the Marvels. And they're trying to tie in like Endgame to the Marvels, which there is no connection there, right? And they're just trying to invoke those feelings that people had when they saw Endgame to draw them out to go see this movie. And you could tell that whatever that trailer was slapped together a few days prior when like bad press for the movie started to leak. So, also before we get into the spoiler field section, there are technically two mid-credit scenes. One is like right at the very beginning of the credits, and the other one is yeah, about mid credits. No need to stay to the end. There is no end credit scene. I thought there was. There is not. All right, so that's about enough of that. Let's talk about some spoilers here. So, if you guys are still here, that means that you are aware of the spoilers. So, where to start with this one here? I mean, honestly, there's not a whole lot here I can spoil. Um, I mean, there are several things about the movie that I think were done pretty poorly that I didn't speak on. So there were some things that I just downright fucking hated about this movie. I hated the Disney princess scene. That entire fucking whatever that shit was, they could have taken that out of the movie and made this like an hour and 20. Fuck whatever that. Who was that for? Okay, Captain Marvel is a Disney princess now. Fucking whoop-de-doo. And there's a planet full of fucking Disney caricatures who sing and dance all day and that's their language and she's a princess there. What in the fuck was the point? What was the point? I if it were physically possible to die from cringe, it would have happened to me. I wouldn't be sitting here right now ranting about this shitty movie. I would still be in the theater dead, and the paramedics would be wondering what the fuck killed this guy, and they'd be like, "That's just the 18th person today that saw this movie and died. We need to figure out what's going on." I hated that scene with the passion. The other thing I hated with the passion, the fucking flirkin. I hate them. I hate them so much. I do. Again, I have to ask, what was the point? Why? Why? For those who don't remember, the Flurkin are the cats that aren't cats, but they're fucking eldritch horrors or whatever. What's the name? Goose. It's the name of the Flurkin. Captain Marvel's cat. Lays a bunch of eggs, has a bunch of Flurkin cat babies, and then they use the Flurkin to eat the crew members on Nick Fury's ship because the ship is going down, and then they get the cats and essential personnel into a space pod and use that escape space pod to safely land on Earth. And then the Flirt can get out of the pod along with Nick Fury and the gang, and the Flirt can puke out all the personnel that were on the ship. Someone wrote that and thought that it would be a good idea. It used to be a time on this podcast when it was a fun challenge for me to break down or explain why something didn't work in the movie. I don't even have that opportunity anymore. I don't even have the chance. Like, there's no need. I can't break it down any further than the movie did itself. Um, it's just the bottom barrel humor, if you want to call it that. I don't know. Let's talk a little bit about these post credit scenes here. So, the first one is we get a Kamala Khan, Nick Fury esque post credit scene when she's trying to recruit Kate Bishop for surely was probably going to be Young Avengers. So here's the issue, right? Like, I remember the Young Avengers were first being rumored around 3 years ago. That's when I first heard rumblings about them potentially doing a Young Avengers, and I feel the same way now that I did then, which is who fucking cares? And I'll say this. One time I did have to eat crow was I actually went back and read like I think it was 2004, 2005 era Young Avengers, like their inception. That was a really good story. Um, the problem is though is that like even though it is a good story, I don't care for half of those characters even still. And on top of that, who's Marvel gonna use? Like in the post credit scene, they mentioned three. Obviously, you have Kate Bishop, Kamala Khan, and then they mentioned Scott Lang's kid, Stature. Um, her fucking name escapes me right now. Who fucking cares? Cassie Lang. So they mentioned those three, and it's like, okay, well, who else? So Patriot, uh, Patriot, pretty sure that's his name. Not to be confused with U.S. Patriot, but he actually made an appearance in Falcon and Winter Soldier in like one episode. So, but that was just kind of like a throwaway Easter egg, I thought. Um, do they want to use Kid Loki? He's somewhere out there in the multiverse. I don't fucking know. Iron Lad, not a chance in hell. They're probably gonna drop Kang altogether, so there will be no Iron Lad. But they'll probably try to replace Iron Lad with Riri Williams. So hey, we'll fucking see. And let's look at. Hell, at this rate, it sounds like it'll be a cross between like the A Team, and not A Team. That's what's that name? It was the name of like all girl superheroes in Marvel Comics. A Force, maybe it was A Force. If only I had like a computer thing that I'm speaking into that could look this shit up for me. Anywho, point being this: I don't care about Young Avengers. I just don't. Not in live action format. They had one really good comic book run. They didn't know when to end it, and then they tried to bring it back, and it didn't work even harder. So, but in terms of like seeing them live action, no. Like and not to go off here on a tangent, but the Marvel they lost their focus severely in Phase Four, and that's when they still had like that huge ego about them, right? This is when Marvel still thought that they could do anything because they're Marvel. People will line up to fucking smell our farts. Like that's the kind of hubris that they seem to have. Like it didn't matter what they put out, they thought that people would just eat it up and love it and ask for seconds. And then slowly throughout phase four, they learn that's not the truth. They learn that people get really sick of their shit, and that their credit was wearing thin. That credit score was dropping. And I say that because that's when they announced shows like House of Harkness. They said, yeah, she's gonna get a show. Echo's gonna get a show. Ironheart's gonna get a show. And I mean, they just started handing out shows to all these characters that don't need fucking TV shows. What? And so they just thought that they could introduce any and all Miss Marvel. I mean, hate to say it, but does she really need a TV show? Um, I there's like literally half of their TV shows no one no one asked for, no one needed, and and then you had movies like The Eternals. Okay, like I'm a Jack Kirby fan. I wish you guys were. Maybe the movie would have been decent, but even still, like, what are you gonna do with the Eternals? Nothing. They're fucking sex robots. They're not even Eternals. And then there was Shang Chi, and again, I think Shang Chi's a cool character, but in the grand scheme of things, what's he gonna lead to? So yeah, they were highly misguided, and like their roster was just bizarre at best. But the issue isn't even their roster, right? Not for me. That's an issue, but it's not the main issue. The main issue is quality. So it doesn't matter if they announce something that would excite me or that wouldn't. The issue is the quality just isn't there. So even if they do bring back Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson or RDJ, none of that shit matters if their writing is continuously going to be dog shit. That's the biggest problem here. The reason why people like Guardians of the Galaxy in the first place, that's a fucking, like, out of nowhere, you know, only the fucking comic nerds know about the Guardians of the Galaxy. You know what I mean? The only reason that it worked is because it was good. That's the main thing. So anyway, enough of that tangent. I say all that just to say they're trying to tease young Avengers, and I'm just trying to say who fucking cares. Um, and then the next post credit scene, I think that this one will have people piped up a little bit more. So okay, we got to set it by the discussing the end of the movie. So the movie ends with, God damn it, I got to talk about the end of this fucking movie. So Dar-Benn like is an idiot or whatever, and she fucking accidentally kills herself with space time power magic shit. And after she fucking evaporates or whatever, and in doing so, she leaves like a hole in the space time continuum or whatever. And the way they describe it is an incursion. They don't use the word incursion, but the verbiage that they use to describe what is happening is that of an incursion. Okay. So Monica, she's the lead expositor in this movie. That's her role, is to exposit things that the other characters don't know about. And Monica explains that Dar-Benn, when she tried to, use the two quantum bands and bang them together, that she ripped a hole in the space and time, and that another universe was bleeding through. And that language, that verbiage, is very similar to that of the incursions. When one universe impedes upon another one, and then the two opposing Earths, start to gravitate towards one another, and there's a very limited time before you can deal with the situation, right? Uh, in this movie, they just had Monica say that, well, I can do it. You guys just need to power me up. And so she does it. And, she gets powered up and she does it. She closes it. In the comic books, the way they stop the incursions is they don't. um, I mean, yeah, Jonathan Hickman makes it very clear in his Avengers run that, hey, yeah, these are what incursions are, and there's no stopping them. And guess what? There's no stopping them. Anywho, I'm that's not like a nit. Well, that is a nitpick on the movie, but I'm just having fun at the movie's suspense at this point. But anyway, so Monica, she closes the knot incursion, but when she does so, she's trapped on the other side. So she's trapped in the parallel universe. And when she comes to, she's in the hospital room, and her mom is kind of looking down at her concerningly, but it's not her mom. Come to find out, is someone else. The button's too far away for me to no. Fuck it. It's not her mom. Oh, you guys see my cool X-Men shirt? There it is. Na 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 na. All right. Yeah. So speaking of na 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 na, Beast comes into play, and it is played by Kelsey Grammer, a highly CG Kelsey Grammer. It looks good though. I'm not gonna sit here and shit on the CG for Beast. I think that it does look good. It looks better than Nicholas Holt. Um, I don't know if I think it looks quite as good as the prosthetics they put on Kelsey Grammer back in X3, but I think maybe it does work better for live action movies. Maybe it's hard to say, but the Beast did look good. And he just comes in and he says, something something. Charles wants to see, Charles wants to speak to you. How are you feeling? You fell through another universe. Blah blah blah. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like I had this spoiled for me a few days ago. I think that's what you get when you just randomly surf Reddit. Sometimes I wasn't angry at it because I didn't care. But it is cool, to see Beast. Always cool to see Beast. But I'm just at this point, apathy for me is starting to set in, right? Because I just saw Beast in a Marvel movie, and it got nothing out of me. And the reason it got nothing out of me is because it doesn't, again, like I just said, it doesn't matter if Beast is here or if they decide to do a whole fucking X-Men movie. If it's shit, then it's shit. So I got no reason to be hype. Marvel has to build up their credit with me again and show me that they still remember how to make movies or television shows. But until then, yeah, it's not really gonna do anything for me. Let's see what else about this movie. I mentioned how I hated the fucking Disney sing song scenes. I mentioned how I hate the fucking Flurkins with a burning passion. I'm gonna throw those motherfuckers to a black hole. Eat that. Um, Jesus Christ, is there anything else of note in this movie? I don't really think there is. I don't think there's nothing else here for me to really talk about. Uh, Iman Vellani, congrats to you for trying your damnedest to carry this movie. I wish they gave you something more. I wish they gave you a deeper character. I wish that you had more shit to work with, a better script. Um, Tiana Paris, damn girl, you fine. Brie Larson, you tried. Uh, I think that's all I got for this one. I can't talk about this movie anymore because at this point it will just be me finding other things to shit on here. And there is more. I know there's more, but I don't want to go out there looking for it. Homies, listen, I uh I I hope that I think that this is the last superhero movie we're getting this year because the Craven movie has been quiet. No, 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 wait, we do get Aquaman. God damn it. We still got Aquaman too. Okay, fuck. Okay, we're good. We're good. All right, so yeah, superhero movies are in a weird place right now. When this podcast first started, it was at like an all-time high. Anticipation was at an all-time high, and it's just sad that we're now in a place where it's not. Um, it was also recently announced that both Captain America 4 and Thunderbolts are being pushed back to 2025. I think that's for the best. You know what I mean? Like if Marvel feels like those movies need to be pushed back, then they need to be pushed back. Um, I think that Kevin Feige is aware that there is a hole in the ship, and that hole is getting bigger by the day, and he's trying his best to kind of plug that hole and get that ship floating back upright. But it's filling up fast. Is what I'm saying here. But seeing him do things like putting the Daredevil show. No, he didn't put it on ice, but he scrapped everything they had and started over. I say good. It's the same thing that I said about David Zaslav when he canceled that Batgirl movie. There were people upset about it. No, cancel the movie. If you think that it's shit and that people should not see that movie, get it the fuck out of here. If a studio exec is willing to throw away $70 million because he doesn't believe in it, he thinks it's dog shit, throw it away. Because at this point, you can either put it out in this shit and it mars the brand even more, or you don't. And you can do something that makes it look like you care a little bit, you know? Uh, but yeah, we'll see what happens. The only thought provoking question that this movie really brought me was, what's the worst Disney movie this year? Is it the Marvels or is it Indy Five? Ooh, I don't it. Ooh, shit. It might still be Indy Five. I don't. It's ooh, fucking hell. That's close. Boy, I just stumped myself with that one. That's a good question, homies. Let me know which movie is is fucking worse, Indy Five or the Marvels. I need to know. But that's all I got for this one, homies. Thank you guys again for listening and listening to the ramblings of this madman who was cranky because it's past his bedtime and he had to watch a bad movie. But that's all for now. I will see you guys again soon. Until then, my name is Superhero Homie Q. Signing off. Saying goodbye to the Carol Danvers vinyl bobblehead one last time. Goodbye, Carol.